a bit of a case study on the branding strategy of Michelle Obama, why she's been relevant over the past 10 plus years of her career, whether Barack Obama is trending in the top media stations or not, and how you can use some of these strategies for your personal or business brand. Now, I'm going to be doing archetypes, which is a fancy name for personality traits on Michelle Obama, so that you can use these in your strategy. So, the caregiver supporter. When we saw Michelle Obama on the presidential run with her husband, and even after Barack Obama became U.S. president, she showed a lot of support. She always had her children, her daughters around to show that she was the mother archetype, even though she was first lady, as most first ladies and U.S. presidential reigns do. The other thing that she was really, really great at compared to some other US first ladies is she had her own brand that was not so much making her a shadow of Barack Obama, where she did initiatives and she invited people to the White House. Did even a karaoke with Missy Elliott on, I forgot the name of the show, but he's a British comedian. And she was constantly putting out images of children first, diet first, talking about disadvantaged groups in the United States. And she kind of not just supported Barack with his initiatives and his campaigns, but she also had her own campaigns. And she showed up, like most, if not all, first ladies on Easter days and Thanksgiving ceremonies and things like that. But she definitely gave that caregiver, not just for her daughters and Barack, but for the United States of America, which I do believe helped her to connect with different groups of women, different groups of people from around the world, and which is another reason why she continues to be able to do these kind of like international tours where she can go not just to Chicago, where her and her family are from, but she can go to Canada. I personally saw her on stage in 2019, and she was giving caregiver vibes for the entire 2 hours. Barack also came to Calgary in 2019, and I saw him there too. He stayed for about an hour, and literally a minute or two on the cusp of an hour, he kind of gave that little, personal sign, and the speaker wrapped it up and he was gone. But Michelle was there on stage in my city for about 2 hours. Another archetype of Michelle is the when they go low, you go high, which is a famous quote that she has. And we've seen this when she was on stage with her husband in the beginning. She was labeled as aggressive and problematic because of the jokes that she was making about her husband, which she was actually trying to be relatable. But being relatable and being aggressive in the way she was saying things came off as angry and aggressive and dismissive and criticizing her husband. And this was also another time where there were comics made up of her and her husband, caricatures of her and her husband in a racial way. And there's so many ways that she could have responded, but literally based on her quote, when they go low, you go high, she kept it professional. She kept it cute. She addressed issues that were stemming towards her and the brand reputation that I don't think she was building purposefully, that people and media outlets were building on behalf of her to make her look like an angry woman who didn't appreciate her husband, which is totally false because we've seen the interviews of the two of them. The love that they have is completely 100% natural, in my opinion. But she was able to keep it classy and keep it supportive and not really get too distracted by some of the negative press that she was getting in the beginning. Now, the vulnerable leader. Now, the reason why I believe she is able to and continues and was able to show herself as a vulnerable leader is she had her own messaging. And when she put out her book, Becoming, which I have, I'm quite honest, I didn't go through the whole book, but I probably read about 3/4 of it. She really showed that before she met Barack, she was a leader. She was a lawyer. she was making, I think, a quarter of a million, 300,000, a little close to that, I believe. Quote me if I'm wrong in the comments. And she did everything that she could to make sure that she had her own story through the book, through interviews with her and her husband, or interviews by herself. She was constantly reminding people that she came from humble beginnings. And although she didn't let stereotypes or her father having a disability get the best of her, or her being a woman in a law office, where there's so many women who didn't look like her, or not many women in law at that time. She constantly kept pursuing her goals of being a lawyer, getting involved with community involvements, continuing her education, and being the forefront of, I think, the supportive mother that a lot of men of power, most of the successful ones, have. And she showed women and people across the globe that even though you might be linked to someone that's powerful that you're married to, you can still lead the way with, for example, her diet initiatives and helping children and people eat healthier. This was something that I believe that she was exhibiting in her own life, and she turned it into a campaign. The silence when needed. So as I mentioned before, when they go low, you go high. Michelle Obama had a really, really good way of staying silent, especially in the beginning when there were a lot of things coming out about her personality, about her gender. There was just a lot of really crazy things that were coming out about her. There was a lot of aggression towards her for many different reasons, which I'm not going to cover here, as most of you probably know. But she kept silent when it was necessary, waited until her book Becoming came out, which I believe came out after Barack was in office. And again, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And she constantly just kept a lot of the real feelings that she was feeling about certain things silent, even decisions that her husband made while he was becoming what the world knows as the senator, as the president. And she waited to put that in her book, which was a very strategic move, because one of the powerful things about branding is not being too accessible or to being allowing yourself to be too exposed until the time is right to share your story, which is, I think, a strategy that Meghan Markle and her husband Prince Harry are also doing too. They, again, were silent on certain controversial issues and things that were coming out about her as well as Michelle in the news, and waited to put out that book and do a Netflix special and, you know, speak it in front of stages and things like that. So she's very strategic in her timing. Also, too, I think one of the things that she kind of directly or indirectly says in interviews in these days and times is she had depression. And some of that was not just her trying to figure out what is she going to do while the world is melting, but I do believe that there were many different moments in recent interviews and also interviews after Donald Trump became president, where she expressed that everything that her and her husband had built kind of felt like it was crumbling away after Donald Trump became president. And I'm not going to go into specifics with that. You can YouTube it, Google it to find out what she meant by that. But she still stayed silent for a certain period of time when Donald Trump was in office, and decided to speak out about it in, again, a very professional and classy way. Going on platforms to be interviewed when people don't expect you to speak with certain people. So at the end of last year, she did an interview with Revolt, and she was interviewed by Angie Martinez. On the panel of the seating panel also included Kelly Rowland, Mrs. Knowles, sorry, I forgot her name, Beyonce's mother, Winnie, which is a model. On stage on the panel was also her, the R&B singer Her, and I'm probably forgetting one more person. Let me know in the comments. But I didn't expect her to be interviewed by Angie Martinez and then sit with all of those women that I had just mentioned, but she did it. And she exposed a lot, which is what one of my videos that did pretty decent here on YouTube Shorts was her cliffhanger. And in that cliffhanger, she basically said that there was a decade, 10 years, where she couldn't stand her husband, Barack Obama. And in the book Becoming, she did explain that um, when I think Malia was born, this was his senator days where he was really, really busy working in the front lines in Chicago, kind of building up his repertoire and his portfolio so that he could eventually, do big things. But she spent a lot of time raising her daughters alone, not literally alone, but while he was out campaigning and things like that. And she had some resentment towards him. She shared in the book, and she did some therapy, or they both did therapy together as a couple. And in this particular Revort interview, when she said for 10 years she had issues with her husband, most people would say, wow, that's a long time. If that were me, I would leave him. And there's a lot of impatience that is attached to the reality of some people's marriages. But that really caught a lot of conversations going on TikTok, on YouTube. That line alone was like a literally a 5 or 6 second clip that ET Online and other big entertainment media companies were sharing. So I'm not saying that you have to talk about how much you despise your husband or people in your family, but if it's going to help somebody realize that, okay, you might say something about your marriage to show women, millennial women or Gen Z women that will eventually get married or are married, that sometimes they're going to have some rough patches. If that can help somebody improve the way that they're looking at their situation and get a real understanding that they're not alone because Michelle Obama said it, or you said it with your platform and your audience, you can definitely go deep and just be 100% honest with people. So that's it. I'm just going to go through these archetypes / personality traits that Michelle Obama has that has helped her become successful. The caregiver / supporter, the when they go low, you go high, the vulnerable leader, which she exhibited in her books and interviews, the silence when needed, going on platforms that your audience won't expect you to go on platforms, which means going on podcasts, YouTube channels, being interviewed by certain non-conventional platforms that have large audiences so that you can get in touch with other audiences, is you can help different audiences and promote products and services at the same time. And that's it in a nutshell. Just to recap, I have about 2 minutes here. Michelle Obama is going to be around for decades to come if she wants to. This book alone that she has out right now, I don't think I'm going to get it because it's more along personal development, which I've read in other books, but she is now taking on an archetype now of the independent wife whose children have moved out of the house, and now she has stories to tell. And I think that it's brilliant that during the pandemic, she had a similar life moment that some people had, which was depression on what am I going to do? The world is changing. Where do I fit in? And her sharing her mental health issue that she obviously overcame is empowering, because I personally would never think Michelle Obama, let alone Barack, which I don't think he's ever came out and said he had depression, but I know I would never think that about her because she has seem what a stable marriage and a stable home. Her daughters are amazing and beautiful and doing what they need to do. It seems like she has everything. So these are these cliffhangers that you can use in your content too. The other thing I think that she has an advantage over other first ladies who are staying silent after their husbands are no longer here is she's relatable. She does talk about controversial issues, but I never hear her going in a toxic direction with it. She doesn't necessarily tell people what to do, but she tells what she's going through and some of the things that she finds to be disheartening in her opinion in millennials or pop culture or society or politics. And she's independent, even though she's married to Barack. Like I told you before, in 2019, Barack came to Calgary, and I think February 2019 when I saw him on stage in Calgary, And then she came 4, 5, 6 months later, which I remember it was in the fall. And then I think Oprah Winfrey came after that. So I literally saw all these three amazing people on stage in 1 year. So that is it for the Michelle Obama strategy. I hope you learned what you needed to know. If you can add to her personal strategy, please let me know in the comments. And stay tuned. I'll be going live literally every week here on YouTube. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to do so. Click on my about and follow me there, while I will also be going live there every week. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself and stay safe. Bye.